about Saints Row. They did black people's hair right.
What's up, Nubians? Welcome to techn00bians, part of the Geekish Network. This is your weekly deep dive into video games steeped in the blackest blacks. For those of you who don't know, techn00bians is your weekly live stream and podcast hosted by technology professionals, where we discuss the what, when, and how you can get into this world of technology, specifically the video game industry. With me today, I have the producer who never holds a grudge, Shanae.
Hey, folks.
The candy man who can do plans, just don't say his name 5 times, Leon.
Yeah, people.
He keeps us all out of the sunken place. It's our artist extraordinaire, Ryan.
Yo, what's up?
And the one who makes it all look like child's play, Chuck.
What's up, everyone?
And did I miss anybody? I don't know.
No.
I guess Travis is here.
Oh, yeah.
Travis is here with us. I'll say it like that. And I'm Cherie. I'm your hostess with the mostest. We are techn00bians. Why are we here every week? We are here to inspire, sustain, nurture successful creative technologists in the pursuit of Black excellence and content development. All right. Y'all know we like to kick things off with the news, and we do a long topic. This week, we are talking about all things Gamescom for 2021. The show just finished up this week, and we want to dissect all the goodness there. So before we get into it, though, we're going to talk some tech and gaming news. So let's get to our news segment, Techn00bians. Here, we're going to kick us off with Travis. We have some Apple news. We have a lot of Apple news today.
Man,
So, Travis, kick us off here.
Yeah, man, I'm looking at this game developer article, and it says Apple, and it's important. We need to parse this whole news story because it's giving me agita, to be honest with you. It says Apple is to let store devs email customers about alternative payment options. Okay. It says that App Store developers will be able to nudge customers over email and make them aware of alternate payment plans to perhaps avoid platform fees. And so the changes being ushered in as Apple attempts to settle a class action lawsuit, in 2019. And of course, this has to do with, Epic. So it says, in a bid to resolve the suit while providing more flexibility and resources for small developers, Apple has clarified that it will now allow devs to use communication such as emails, share information about payment methods outside of their iOS app. Although a notable step, this doesn't mean developers will be able to integrate alternative payment options into the apps themselves. Okay.
But give us a little background real quick, by the way, for the Epic Apple lawsuit.
Well, basically,
like 30 seconds.
Well, Apple, if you exist on their platform, feels like they can tax you basically for every transaction you make in their store. And depending on who you ask, it's either justified or unjustified, or it's a little too draconian. It depends on who you ask, honestly. Now, for me, this whole, developers could already email you about alternative, ways to pay. The question is, would it be allowed? Right? Like in the actual store itself. I can email you about aliens and monsters right now. It doesn't mean anything, right? So my whole point is that if there are alternatives to that store, they will be created. Okay. If nothing else, but to get rid of that 30 cent on the dollar VIG that Apple has, right? And so anything above probably 10% or something like that is going to be enough for a whole industry to crop up to grant you rights in the Apple store, right? And so I don't know what they're doing. It doesn't make sense to me. This whole thing doesn't make sense to me. And I just know as soon as you're able to have some sort of alternative billing structure, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen so huge that everybody's going to be reeling from it.
It sounds like Apple, it's really interesting, right? Like you said, you could already kind of do this. So it kind of feels like Apple sort of like, hey, what if we let you do this thing that you could already do, but we're just not going to tell you, we're not going to be mad at you about it next time. It feels like they're trying to offer this much because they're, I think what's interesting is it sort of signals a bit around what Apple's perception of how this case might go, right? Like they're no longer as confident as they may have presented themselves during the case.
Yeah.
You're trying to offer a little bit, sort of see like, hey, can we settle on this so that something much worse for us doesn't happen? Like,
would you get
This is
mad
like,
if I called this like Jim Crow?
Okay,
let's not go crazy.
let's not bring civil rights into it yet. We got a civil rights story
What I'm
today.
saying is Apple is saying, well, you're free. It's not free.
not
Yeah,
free.
but I gotta come in here with Travis, right? This is like Aunt Jemima changing the syrup bottle and saying, "Look, we fixed racism," right?
Wait, I thought racism ended when we elected Obama. What are you guys talking about?
It did.
What? Racism is still here in 2021. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. No, I mean,
It's a non-step. They still make it very clear that you cannot put any UI in your application saying there's an alternative.
That's what they're trying to prevent.
Yeah.
Most
So you can go to them and
or
beg.
email from game developers on their apps. I do, or any developer on their apps. I do. So it's just a non-step to say, see, look, we allowed something. When the reality is they did nothing. They know well that this is ineffective, and they're just trying to slow this down because once they lose that 30%, which keep in mind, retail's margins are about 3%. So Apple thinks they deserve 10 times that margin, and they do literally nothing for you.
yeah, I mean, and I've kind of followed along back when, they were actually in the middle of the trial. And I know this was something that the judge was kind of like hanging on a little bit. Like, why don't you like people to be able to like, let developers, why don't you like developers to let people be able to let people know about these other options? So I think Apple's probably thinking, well, we're making a little bit of a concession here because the judge was like
A little bit of a concession.
Yeah. They're like, and like you said, they're not really doing anything, but at least it gives the illusion to the judge that they're doing something.
Jim Crow.
And maybe they're hoping that might tilt a little bit in their favor. But yeah. We'll see what actually happens with that.
It's the veneer of freedom.
No, we're going to talk about MLK in a little bit. We can't be invoking.
Okay, all right, fine. Give us free though.
Oh.
Give us a free.
Well, since we're already talking Apple, why don't we continue this trend? Leon, you have something to tell us a little bit about Apple, right?
I do. So Apple just announced that they are implementing or plan to implement features on their phones where they will look for the digital signature of known child pornography images. And if those signatures are detected, they will send an email and contact the authorities. Now, on one hand, most people would say that, child pornography is bad, agreed, and doing things for the children is good, agreed. However, this is a really, really scary precedent. It's a bell that cannot be unrung. And once your phone is going through your content and reporting on you to authorities, you think it's just going to stop on child pornography? Governments around the world are going to start demanding that. And if you want to think about this from a tech perspective, at any given moment, your iPhone or your smartphone is not using much of its processing power, right? It's probably using 5 to 10% at any given moment. So why not run a machine learning algorithm on that device and look for you doing something else? Like, oh, look, someone's smoking marijuana or something. Let's send an email to your job, or let's send an email to the local government, as those are still federal laws. So there's some scary precedents here, and I certainly don't want my mobile device reporting on anyone and cashing it in this whole thing of, well, it's just for child pornography. It's just a dangerous precedent. We can't unring that bell. And if our smart devices are going to start spying on me that much, then I'm going back to the Nokia phone.
Yeah, I gotta admit.
You gotta get a Cricket, by the way.
It's,
They'll give you an iPhone. Though. Cricket will give you an iPhone now.
I mean, if you,
I'm going back to the razor.
if you really think about this, though, this is. I always come back to this about how our technical abilities seem to be advancing a lot faster than our ethical ones, right? Because it does. Leon, it sounds like a great idea, right? Like, just like me being able to control my my relatives' computers so that I don't have to talk them through a technical thing. I can just remote desktop into their computer. and do that thing. But if you look at anybody who's getting scammed now out of thousands of dollars, they're using the same tool, to bilk people out of a whole bunch of money that you use to do something that is potentially helpful. Right. And so that's really how you have to look at these things. You can't just look at technology as like what it's going to do for you. You should think about what it's going to do to people as well. And especially the bad parts.
No, I think the thing that really shocked people about this is that it sort of represents a very different, like a different approach for Apple, right? Like Apple has, for years, Apple has been all about privacy. They presented themselves and presented their Apple devices, iPhones like that. Like we will not unlock iPhones. Like we can't even get into them, right? Like they said, they built so much encryption. They're like, we literally can't get into someone else's device, any of our customers' devices. And we did that intentionally. And they fought in court against FBI. I think it was like the San Bernardino shooter. The FBI suspected there was data on his phone, and they said, "Hey, Apple, can you guys help us get into this?" And they refused, right? And there were a lot of privacy advocates that were on board. And they're like, "Yes, Apple's really like they're standing behind what they say here when they say that security is paramount for them." So this represents a real shift in their thinking.
Yep.
And I think it's really worthwhile to sort of examine why a company that was so committed and so actually bullish around privacy has decided that it is important for them to make this shift. And I think a lot of this has to do like with what Travis was saying, just the ways in which people use technology for evil purposes. And this specific thing, like every sort of like, especially video content creation platforms has had to deal with this as a problem, has had to deal with content that was either whether it's child pornography or whether it's revenge porn or whether it's all sorts of things that like people put on the platform where they coerce stuff out of folks who do not want to be on that platform. We saw some stuff with OnlyFans just recently that was related to this as well, honestly. And so the question that I think I think there's sort of the conversation that we've got going on here is there's the potential for a slippery slope, but there's also, okay, well, what do we do about this? Because we can't just say, well, sorry, child pornography is just a thing that we have to deal with. It just exists because humans are awful, right? So I don't know what the solution is, honestly, right?
Well, because I know what the solution isn't, and the solution isn't to invade people's privacy. And I remember when we first started, Leon and I started talking about doing techn00bians, is because we had like these philosophical debates all the time. And one of the things that Leon was particularly proud of is being an ex-Microsoft employee, and how Microsoft had been through sort of this fire already, right? And it reminds me of what Obama said when he said that being like the president makes you more of who you are, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and we saw how that goes the opposite way as well. But, and Apple was great when it was scrappy, right? Apple was, when Apple was defining the rules, when they were throwing the sledgehammer at things and so on and so forth. Now that Apple is basically the man in several sectors, you are now starting to see who Apple really is. And the question is, do we like it?
Yeah. The other thing I'll add on this, and this has been kind of Apple's defense, is that they're like, well, we are not going and actually, scanning every image you have. What they're basically doing is, they are comparing like, some of the, I don't know, like metadata or something like that against like some of the known. So some of like the known child sexually explicit material, right? So like basically it's like it's running a comparison there. It's not like supposedly like, going through and like scanning every image per se to be like, what's in every single image that they have here. That's been their defense. There's also been some speculation that possibly one of the reasons why they're doing this is they're trying to get ahead of upcoming legislation, and they're trying to try and set this up so that maybe they can start doing encryption for the iCloud, because they don't have encryption on their iCloud right now. Mm-hmm. So there's some like, I guess, charitable, readings of it, but like everyone has said on here, I mean, when you consider how much Apple has been about privacy, heck, the epic Apple lawsuit, part of the reason they don't want people like, being able to sideload is they're talking about security for their system. It's like that. But part of, when you consider how much they've hyped privacy and stuff like that, it does feel very much kind of, contrary to that.
Yeah, just a really brief point. On the one side with these social media platforms and content hosting platforms, we say we want to hold them responsible for the content on their platforms, and then at the same time we're saying, well, but don't invade my privacy in order to do that. So we're really sort of limiting their abilities to actually do the thing that we said we want them to be able to do. So I think it's worth a conversation and not just shutting it off with the idea of a slippery slope. And also, like Cherie said, understanding what the actual thing that they're doing here is. It's not they're going through your questionable photos that you took of yourself and your girlfriend or anything like that. But it is much more tactical.
Yeah, and let's be honest. We part of a government. We're part of a system that is very litigious, and everybody goes for the king. And Apple is the king. So follow the money. We just have to follow the money trail. Why is Apple doing this? And it is in the long term to protect themselves against a government that's going to attack them because they're the biggest king on the block. They are King Kong right now. Mm-hmm. And America has a tendency to take down King Kong every time King Kong rises.
Yeah. I would just say, the John Adams quote comes to mind. Those who trade liberty for security have neither. And we really have to be careful here about limiting the powers of law enforcement. I certainly agree. Any content it's uploaded online it's open season on what gets searched. But once you start penetrating someone's phone, and I agree, they're just looking for metadata today, right? But they could have a nude filter. And then they start running the nude filter and saying, oh, I'm going to prosecute you, 16-year-old, because you've been sending nudes to your girlfriend. And that was exchanging of child pornography, right? Like, this is not completely unreasonable to state. And, it's for the same reason that a few years ago, the Obama administration was really pushing for security backdoors into encryption. And people said, no, because we can't, I get it. You want to get into these people's phones, but you will undermine all commerce and all security, and it's not worth the price. So, I think that this is very dangerous, and we should certainly keep an eye on this.
Yep. Very, very true. Very true. All right. We're going to go on to our next story here. Shanae, you have a fun story for us.
Yes. So, anyone out here play Fortnite? Fortnite, that's apparently a pretty popular game.
Fortnite.
Fork and knife.
It's done some numbers. It's been pretty popular. So the Time Magazine actually recently did a partnership with Fortnite, with Epic Games, to present what they call a March Through Time, I think DC63. It is as they describe it, a celebration of the life and work of Nobel Peace Prize recipient Dr. Martin Luther King. And so they sort of transformed a section within the area, within the environment, so that it looked more like 1963 Washington when Dr. King gave his "I Have a Dream" speech. And you could actually watch the "I Have a Dream" speech in Fortnite. You could. There's also supposed to be small mini games and like museum pieces that you can work through as they basically transformed this into a living museum. But man, this idea, as expected, some folks didn't take it with the level of reverence that, a battle royale shooting video game where you can dress as Rick from Rick and Morty, or like a giant pickle, or whatever. They didn't hold this with reverence and respect. And so Epic has been having to do things like turn off certain emotes, like say the throwing tomato emote that got used an awful lot in the first 24 hours, among other things. And I just want to open the floor to people to ask them what they think about trying to teach folks history through a video game where you shoot each other in the face.
Is there anything more respectful than a giant banana teabagging someone at the scene of the "I Have a Dream" speech?
I mean, apparently not.
You can do the Running Man.
It's a metaphor.
Yes.
I feel
you can do the Running Man.
I feel like Killmonger. Is this your civil rights? Right? Because the thing is that, what should be said is this your metaverse verse? Because, ladies and gentlemen, this is it. This is it. Right?
This is what we're getting.
This is what we dreamed. Like, Martin Luther King had a dream.
This is not what I dreamed, Travis.
Nightmare, I think. Nightmare part of it. I have a nightmare. That's what they should have done.
Because I'm thinking, hey, kind of cool. And then I'm thinking, but people aren't.
Here's my thing. This is what, like, going into this, like, this is one of those things that sounds fine on paper if you don't understand the Fortnite community, video gamers, humans, and online space that allows them anonymity. Like, if you don't understand a whole bunch of things, sure, this sounds okay. I just don't understand what the end goal was, right? Do they think, hey, we're going to teach folks we're going to teach them about the MLK speech? Trust me, I have a dream. Everybody learns about I have a dream. Can you teach them about Letter from a Birmingham Jail? Can you teach about literally any other speech that Dr. King gave? Like, that's like what I don't understand what the ultimate outcome they were expecting was going to be here. And what we saw happen was exactly what I thought was going to happen. I think, like, some of my favorite tweets about this. Someone says, this was posted on Kotaku, I think Rick Sanchez and the xenomorph from Aliens learned something today, and they've been given a lot to reflect on. Yeah.
I think this makes it.
I just mentioned, I think so you were mentioning here, Travis, before, like, this is like what Fortnite has been wanting to do, right? We had like Ariana Grande concerts. We got I Have a Dream. Can I just say, I think we found the line of good taste.
Is the line behind us?
Yeah, it's like, okay, I mean, I understand, like, we want to be able to put everything into, like, I got your peanut butter and my jelly and my chocolate and my, whatever. I get we want to be able to put everything together, but not everything works well together. We have to understand the context, because, like, if they had really, like, I really feel like someone put this on paper and they didn't, like, it's baffling to me how, when they ran this by, like, the Fortnite folks, like, there was clearly nobody in the room to say, I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't know. We're going to have people dancing, doing, like, all sorts of crazy dances in front of this. They're going to be dancing on the TVs. They're going to be like, I don't know. Like, to me, I'm kind of like, all right, I don't feel like you can take something like this and put it into something like Fortnite and expect there to be, like, I'm not sure what their end goal was. Or, like,
it's not chocolate and peanut butter. This is like chocolate and spiders. Like,
spiders.
Respectfully, I don't necessarily agree. I think that what this highlights to me is that rules, just like anything else when you're designing games, influences experiences, it influences gameplay and so on and so forth, right? So think about this MLK edifice as a cinematic or an area in the game where you can't do certain things, right? And so what we're really describing is because I would really like to explore, like, a 3D Martin Luther King exhibit, and if I can do it using the movement, like, in locomotion that I'm used to in a first person shooter, I can go to these different things and experience those things. No, I can't emote. No, I can't shoot. No, I can't do all those things. You control everything in a game simulation. Just turn it off, right? Like, if you're in these areas, you don't have these rights. And that's not something that we're unfamiliar with. That's something that happens in every single game, right? And so people just need to know that certain areas are going to be, much like the Continental in John Wick, right? Like, you can shoot everybody outside this door, but as soon as you come into this hotel, you cannot use these weapons.
I can only imagine we can't do that. I can imagine the first week the Continental was open, and they're like, "Yeah, don't shoot when you come in here." Everyone comes in, they shoot everyone up, and they're like, "Oh crap! 24 hours have elapsed, and we seem to have not thought of the fact that murderers might have guns on them." So from here on out, no more shooting, okay, guys? Like, that's what this was. It feels like a partially executed idea.
I think this may be part litmus test, but also as a Morehouse brother to Martin Luther King and somebody that worked with John Lewis, I find it really intriguing that they commercialized him to this point when he didn't receive reverence until 1983. 1984. They vilified him his entire life. It was literally 20 years after he lived, they started recognize that he might have been onto something good.
I think there's 2 points that come to mind here. One, I think there is a general lack of sacred cows when it comes to things along the civil rights movement, right? No one would ever put the Auschwitz level in Fortnite. They would not dare, right? But when it comes to things on civil rights, they're willing to kind of, we'll just try it and let it go. But, and the other thing this reminds me of in terms of gamer behavior is, early in my career, we worked on a multiplayer game where we allowed people to upload custom bitmaps that would be displayed on their avatar. And I was one of the people that insisted that we have a internal review of that before it was rendered. And people didn't want to do it. They're like, that's not going to scale. That's not going to scale. The very first thing uploaded was a swastika. That's good. I just
knew it was going to be TTP. So
yeah, that was probably third. But we know the bad behavior is there. So to Travis's point, put them on rails and stop the bad behavior before it engages. Just ask the gamers, right? It's not a mystery, right? You can ask the gamers; and they'll tell you what they'll do.
It's the most predictable thing ever.
I mean, there is a little bit of irony for saying like it's just the way we framed it before, Travis. We said you don't have the right, like we're going to remove your rights from doing these certain things, and there's a little irony of saying we're removing your rights, so you have to watch our civil rights leader right now.
Yes.
Travis, are you going to declare Jim Crow again? Travis' Jim Crow law.
I mean, this could have been worse, you all. This could have been a lot worse.
It could have been a lot worse. But I think there's
sorry, what was your point, Reem?
Yeah, so I think there's just a tendency, like for us to kind of feel like MLK now he's a Pokemon, or like let's just throw him out here, like we want to feel like we're teaching people something. Here's the I have a dream speech. We want to feel like we're on the right side of history. Here's this thing, right? Like, what are the people in Fortnite really truly learning from seeing this I have a dream experience? They get like. They said you have to complete some of the, these little mini games or whatever, and then you get like some little, DC 63, token or whatever they get for it. I'm like, what are they really teaching? That's the thing. I think they really need to evaluate this a little bit better beyond like understanding, what abilities they allow you to do in the game, versus, I think they need to think about, is this the right forum?
No,
for it.
Answer no. Give me a Malcolm experience.
Yeah, it's so funny. They took they took the most neutered speech from King and used it.
Yep.
That speech has no bite in it, none, zero, and he had a lot of speeches with bite in it.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they harbor on this one speech that he was like, come on, white people, let's all just get along. And I was like, he was never really that guy.
There's a thing that was a bit frustrating for me too. Like, and we see this all the time. Like you said, the way that they describe it is they always describe Dr. King and they summarize it down to just the feel good moments. And like, yeah, Dr. King's message was about unity and about everyone getting together. And I'm like, is that all you took from it? Really? Like when we talk about the March on Washington, you guys know it wasn't called March on Washington. It was March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. And when we talk about jobs and freedom, we're specifically talking about the economic plight of Black people in the 1960s. Like, yes, like ultimately everyone loves the quote about, shouldn't judge someone about the color of the skin, but the content of their character. But understand Dr. King was living in the 1960s, 1950s, 1960s, like in the South, where we look back and we say, well, yeah, that's obvious. Like Dr. King was saying be colorblind. No, he wasn't saying be colorblind. He was saying, I am a Black man and look what happens to Black people in America. Read Letter from Birmingham Jail. I've always got that on it's on my phone at the ready. If you really want to see like what Dr. King was talking about, like in like the unvarnished truth of what Dr. King was talking about. And this, I Have a Dream speech is an absolutely lovely, it's a beautiful speech. But it is, we act like it is the totality of Dr. King's legacy, and it was the totality of his message because it makes us feel good. So that's why we listen to that one. That's why we watch that one. If they really want to do something interesting, like I said, teach beyond what people learn in their second or third grade class, which is that's the only thing people learn about Dr. King in American schools, like up through K through 12, right? Teach beyond that. Teach beyond Dr. King himself. Talk about Mountain. Talk about Stokely Carmichael. Talk about all the different folks that were involved in this, because we learn about what Dr. King, Rosa Parks, probably Obama now. that's probably the totality of like, that's the Black experience, right? You guys got 3 good ones, and now I don't know.
You're good,
jail.
Right? Yeah.
You're good, right?
Also fix the loading screens, because somebody said they were like loading out of it and it said headshots are you aim for the head for something like that. And I'm like, oh Lord. Yes. You don't have any design documentation for this thing.
This is why I said this felt like a nugget of an idea that was not fully developed and didn't take into account like the totality of what they were trying to create.
Yes. Okay. Well, I think we have talked this, this story here. Let's jump on. Actually, Ryan, you have a story for us real quick. I think we jump in.
So we're going to talk about Blizzard in a little bit, because it's in my personal ethos. So California accuses Activision Blizzard of hampering a lawsuit. So they actually filed a lawsuit against Activision Blizzard. They're accusing the company of stonewalling the state regulator and shredding documents relevant to its investigation. So that's kind of shady when you hear about that, you know. Yeah. And honestly, y'all, my only real true question is it bad if I recently put in an application to go to work at Blizzard? Is that bad, or is it like I kind of because I actually did work for him in the past, honestly, and it kind of feels weird. Like, can I show my work? You know, can I show my work because it's associated with Blizzard? It's almost like it's tainted a little bit. Like,
if it makes you feel better, Blizzard is not the only abusive place.
Yeah.
They're just the one for the moment.
I think it's important, to assess the company that you work for. It's important. Sometimes fiscally, it's sometimes better to ignore it. But I don't think you can in the long term, right? Because you're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. And I don't know what it's going to take in order for Activision Blizzard to get better. I don't. Because once again, everything that I've seen makes me feel like they're paying lip service to what they're doing, but they're really not interested in wholesale change. I could be wrong, but it just doesn't feel like it to me. And I really hope that I'm wrong.
I know how you fix it. You just change your employees, switch out your employees, somebody else, get a new cast.
But the top management also, they got to switch themselves out.
I was gonna say you just make sure you put that equal opportunity employment thing at the bottom of your website, and you're good, right?
That's all you gotta
do. No, but for real though, I mean, this we talk about this. We've talked about this story in a few past episodes and given updates on it and stuff. And I do appreciate that. We wouldn't have been able to have. I don't think this lawsuit would have happened like even 3 years ago, even 5 years ago and beyond. But this is not a new problem within the game industry. Talk to any women, talk to any Black and brown folks, talk to anyone from marginalized identity, LGBTQIA, disabled folks. Like this is it's been an ongoing problem within the game industry, and we sort of have these linchpin moments throughout our industry's history. I think one happened in 2014 with the thing that shall not be named. I think another one happened as Me Too sort of swept the game industry just a little bit, but back during last summer, which I think is it was pivotal to happen during last summer because that's when people were in lockdown at home, like watching the news, paying attention to the news. And the fact that California filed a lawsuit, I think is another linchpin moment because that's so much bigger than just individuals filing a lawsuit. This is the state of California coming in and saying, hey, we can't ignore this anymore. And I say the word ignore because, in order for this stuff to continue, a lot of folks ignored a whole lot of things. It's not just everyone says there's a few bad apples. Well, yeah, sure, a few bad apples, but a few bad apples spoil the bunch. So there's a few bad apples who are the actual direct abusers, whether it's physical, mental, sexual, or verbal abuse. But there's a whole lot of folks who ignore it, whether it's for the financial imperative or for whatever. But that's not to say that like it's a hard problem to solve. Yeah, switching people out is ultimately the thing. But when we're talking about organizations that are hundreds of people, it is such a complex way to address this thing. Like I always say, like your company's culture is determined in your first 10 hires. So if you got a company that has like 500 employees and it's being sued by the state of California, I don't know how many people work at Blizzard. You have a company that has hundreds of employees and it's being sued by the state of California, and your culture was determined in your first 10 hires. That's a hairy problem to solve.
Yeah. It's very true. I know you and I were kind of joking about this before with regards to like Jeopardy, where like, they had the host who stepped down, Mike Richards, and he's going back to being the EP. And people were like, why is he still the EP? And they're like, well, we're going to give him training. He's going to get sensitivity training. And I said, man, the lengths we go to retain like toxic people in power is amazing sometimes.
Not just sensitivity training, but they said that he's going to have like a handler who like keeps an eye on his behavior. I'm like,
really? I'm like, come on, dude, come on. But anyways, all right. Well, this is a good place for us actually to move on to our long topic. It's a little less heavy. We're going to talk about Gamescom because Gamescom was this week. Mm-hmm. And so we want to talk about all the things that were like all the different things that were announced, all the things that, that we're like interested in and just talk a little bit about behind the scenes stuff at Gamescom. So let's start this off. Who can give us a definition? What is Gamescom? I mean, everyone's heard of E3, but what is Gamescom?
Gamescom is the biggest video game convention in Europe. It is. If you don't know about Gamescom, and a lot of folks over here in the States don't know about it or don't pay attention to it, it is bigger than E3.
Yes.
It drives a lot of like the industry goings-ons. It's attended largely by European press and also by a lot of Asian press. And yeah, you should, if you're not paying attention to Gamescom, you should absolutely pay attention to Gamescom. I only got to go once. I think it was like 2010, but it's an amazing event and it's huge. And it has, for at least as long as I've known about Gamescom, it hasn't always been, E3 used to be a press only focused show. And then now it's switched to being press and consumers. And that's caused a lot of turmoil and heartache within the development community. But Gamescom has been press and consumers for a long time, like a 4-day show. I think it's 2 days each or something like that. So yeah, if you ever get the opportunity to go to Gamescom, like it's an experience. Absolutely.
Yeah. If Gamescom is like you said, it's bigger than E3. Why is it that we only hear about like E3 for the most part over here? I mean, you do hear about Gamescom, but like, to be honest, like, I mean, E3 seems to be like the perception, at least I'll say, for someone who's not like in the industry, is that E3 is like the show. Why is that?
I think it's just because we're American, right? And if anything, Americans are very good at turning a blind eye to anything that might not be American, right? And I don't think you can afford to do that nowadays. Just because our platform has gotten to the point now where you can make a good game, you can make a top tier game anywhere, right? And because you can make a top tier game anywhere, your dev teams can be anywhere. And so that's why Gamescom, the things you see announced out of Gamescom from developers you've never heard of or barely heard of, or publishers you barely heard of that are awesome, are just because of that, right? And I think that's awesome, actually.
I mean, just to put it succinctly, if you're a content creator, you're going to make a lot more money making a soccer game than you are an American football game.
True.
Every day of the week.
Very true. FIFA outsells Madden by
a lot.
A lot. It's the highest selling sports game in the world.
Yep.
I also think some of the reason why we pay attention to E3 more too has been in previous years, E3 wasn't a consumer focused show. So there's sort of like this mystery and allure around it. Like it looks like it's just this thing that you can't get into and it's so exclusive and all this kind of stuff. So we tend to sort of like hold it up on a pedestal. Whereas, like I said, Gamescom has been has allowed consumers for the consumer days of the show for, I don't know, a long time. I don't even know if it's since the beginning or whatever, but at least like a decade.
Yeah,
and it makes sense. And it makes sense if you think about our industry in particular, right? We have to stay close to our user base. We have to stay close to our fans. They move this industry much like no other industry that I really know of that has such a tight feedback loop between their end users and the content creators.
Yeah.
And so I think that this show, Gamescom, being a mix of consumers and professionals, is the shape of things to come. Honestly, just period. There's no way around it, at least in my opinion. These people need to be heard. Your customer base needs to be heard, and giving them the ability to experience your products in the best light. I mean, that seems like a win-win scenario to me. I could be wrong.
Yeah. So who here has been to Gamescom? Shanae, I know you've been. Travis, you've been. Okay. All right. So y'all two are the Gamescom veterans that we have. I have, even though I have not been to Gamescom, when I was working in, development, I always knew we had like, oh, this is the Gamescom demo. It's like, It throws everything else out. Everything else, goes out the window. Everything else with our development schedule goes out the window. It's just like, we need to work on this. We need to get this going. So can y'all talk a little bit about maybe like the impact there and why why there is so much pressure to make sure we have a good showing over at Gamescom?
Just as a point too, I think what you mentioned about having a Gamescom demo is a really good point, because you have an E3 demo and you have a Gamescom demo, and they're separate demos. For a lot of the other shows, I can reuse my E3 demo, I can reuse my Gamescom demo, but I sure as heck better have two separate bespoke demos first at those individual shows and tailored to those audiences too, because like the European press versus the US press pay attention to and care about different things. So we want to always make sure that what we're trying to highlight in our game is tailored to the audience we're presenting it to as well. I mean, it's like, I think that's probably the thing. Like someone in our comments or on the Twitch stream made a comment that there's no such thing as like PAX EU or PAX UK because they didn't need it. They have a Gamescom.
Yep.
Gamescom serves that purpose. And it's when I went to the show, I'll tell you guys a tiny story about Gamescom. I went back in, I want to say it was 2010 or something like that. But this is back when we could still go to places in person.
It feels so long ago.
It feels so long. I actually just searched to see if Gamescom was in person this year. It was not. It was another online only event. But this was me reminiscing back in the day when I actually got to go in person to things, and it took place in Cologne, Germany as well. And our hotel was right across the street from the Lindt chocolate factory, by the way, which smelled delicious. Tiny story, has nothing to do with games, but has to do with games people. We were at Gamescom. It was hot as heck. We're doing our demo. We're doing our live demo in front of a bunch of folks. We also had a separate, if you guys don't know, like a lot of those demos take place on the show floor, but then we usually also have like a separate, like, what do you call it? Like a interview, green rooms or whatever, where we also
behind closed doors sort of area.
Behind closed door demos take place as well. They're usually in a separate location. And so we had that likewise. And some of our folks from Capcom Japan were in town as well for those interviews. And one of the things you have to learn about that was a revelation to me in my younger years, ice is not as common a commodity within your drinks. Like you just don't get iced drinks. That's not a thing. Every iced drink was more like kind of cool or like room temperature. And they all had carbonation, all of them. So basically warm carbonated drinks were like your deal in like 95-degree Fahrenheit weather. It was, and you're in front of a camera and you're answering questions. It was just very challenging. And so I'm there with I was on my way to the conference. This was like day 2 or 3 or something like that. And I was tired of drinking carbonated drinks. So I stopped by this gas station and I bought 2 giant containers of ice water that were not carbonated because they were not available in the convention center. And I hauled that mess all the way to the convention center, got up there. I remember I sat on the side. I'm sitting in there with Inafune-san and a few of my other colleagues from Capcom Japan. And folks came in and asked, like the folks who were attending, everyone that came in and asked, like, would everyone like water? And like, gas or no gas? carbonation or no carbonation. No carbonation is still carbonated, by the way. There's no such thing as no carbonation in those areas. And I said, Inafune-san, choto. I grabbed my bottle of non-carbonated water. I said, dozo. We had a moment. That was it. I'm like, I have brought you non-gas water that I hauled for 5 miles for this moment, for all of us. Dozo.
Can I be additive there? Actually,
please do.
So I'm at PlayStation, so and I hate beer.
What?
I hate beer, right? And if there's anything you can get in Cologne, it's beer. Let me tell you, they don't mess around too, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, like, I really, really just want some Coca-Cola. That's what I want, right? I want Coca-Cola. And so if you order a beer, they will bring out a gallon of beer and put it right in your face. Like, here you go, ice cold beer. When you ask for a Coke, they will bring you a shot glass of Coca-Cola that has no ice in it at all. Right? So I decided that I was going to make my stand at this bar. Right? And so I said, I want a Coke. And they brought out that little glass again, right? And I said, listen to me, sir. And I want you to really hear me when I tell you this. I want you to put all of this Coke into that big ass glass that you would normally serve me beer in, and put a whole bunch of ice cubes in it. Okay? And he looked at me like, but sir, like that would cost. And I looked at him like, does it look like I care how much it costs? If that drink would have cost me $30, it would have been like going out on a date at the AMC movie theater. So I did not care. I just wanted it. And as soon as I got it, everybody in the bar went crazy and they kept doing it. They were like, yo, where'd you get that? And I'm like, yeah. So I left Cologne being a trendsetter because I know.
You're a rock star right there. You started a trend.
No, man. Like, we were all building bridges at Cologne. That was all we were about.
I didn't know how real the struggle was about like not having ice. Because when I was in Argentina, trying to get iced tea was just about impossible.
Right. Oh, don't ask for iced tea.
It was 97 degrees, and every time I got tea, it was like hot tea. And I was just like, I could sometimes get them to bring me a cup of ice. Mm-hmm. And then one time I was there with some of my colleagues, and I explained to them, and my colleague, he had been to America, so he knew about iced tea. And he's like, hang on a second, I'm going to get them to bring you iced tea. And he went in the back and he argued with them for 20 minutes. And then he came out with a cup of iced tea for me. And I was like, thank you.
My most shameful moment as a game developer in my youth, and I didn't know any better, is when I went to the UK and we went to like a pub, and I asked, that's when I wanted to drink. And I said, oh, do you have iced tea? My colleagues from Ninja Theory did not fight for me to get that iced tea. They just looked at me like,
they're colleagues, man. They're colleagues. So, okay. All right. Let's jump into some of the games that were shown over at Gamescom this year, because there was a whole lot, So I just actually want to ask, I mean, maybe we can just talk about some of the announcements, right? Obviously, there were announcements around like Saints Row, their new Saints Row. What was the name of the?
Yeah, it's just called Saints Row, I think. Actually,
yeah, it's just a reboot, I guess. Saints Row was announced. There was a new Marvel Midnight Suns announced. We had announcements around Halo. We had announcements around Horizon Zero Dawn. Who wants to talk a little bit about like some of these announcements that we had? Some of the ones that are kind of interesting for you.
I just want to go against my nature. For
talking about a Nintendo
the second time here.
No, this is a Halo conversation.
No, it's either Halo or maybe it's Metroid Dread. I don't know.
No. I just want to give props once again to Microsoft for like a dope presser, right? I think that for whatever reason, I don't know what the reason is, but PlayStation just seems to not be playing the game anymore. I don't know what it is, But, you know, over the past few years, they just seem like they're ambivalent to a lot of the way things used to be done in the past for whatever reason. And Microsoft is just, you know, consistently just come out spitting hot fire. Right. And I can appreciate that. You know, I really can. And this is also so that I can point to, you know, Leon and say, see, I told you, you know, that it wasn't about Microsoft. It was about Microsoft's actions. And now Microsoft is acting like they're the king of the hill. And I can appreciate that.
Are you talking about their cloud gaming announcement?
Yeah, I'm talking about that. I'm talking about, like, I mean, you know, look, Halo aside, because, you know, I'm not a Halo player, but, you know, I just think that, you know, them buying up all the great independent developers that have been out there, them actually getting them on track and making cool stuff that is, you know, on their platform. That's what you're supposed to do as a platform developer, a platform holder. And Microsoft is holding it down, and I have nothing but respect for that behavior. Nothing but respect.
I think, you know, to Travis's point, one of the things interesting about Microsoft is not that they've taken a shot, but they've been able to maintain continuous fire for months.
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
You know, and if you look at what they brought to the party, it wasn't just the new stuff from the independent developer. Look at the games that came from their traditional games. You had Forza Horizon, which I don't even like driving games, and I'm like, shut up and take my money. You look at Age of Empire, right? Age of Empires 4, right? Like, what a way to go back, you know, to Microsoft's gaming PC history. You know, Halo took some lumps when they first announced it. Nobody's saying anything about it now. So I think, you know, in addition to what they're doing in the cloud, addition to just the amazing value of Game Pass, you know, the only problem I have with Microsoft right now is can I get more consoles? You know?
Yeah, right, for real.
Right.
Build more, because, you know.
I agree with everyone else. Like some of the most exciting news that came out was that the cloud gaming thing. Travis, I think in like a couple weeks ago, or at least we were talking about this in one of our previous episodes. I think you actually mentioned when we were talking about how Microsoft was buying up a lot of independent developers. You made the sort of off comment, hey, if they make cloud gaming and attach that to Game Pass, then they're basically gonna, like, that's holding the one ring.
Game over.
And that's exactly what they did. You know, I think it's really interesting. It's exciting for them to do that. I know that, like, there's very few players that are at Microsoft level to be able to do that, not just from a strategic standpoint, but from a money standpoint. Let's be honest, they are pouring millions, if not billions, close into like in hundreds of millions into this strategy. I think it's gonna be interesting to see how it pays off as well, because I mean, yeah, it's super compelling especially in this new console generation, to get this number of games. So many of these games are like are day one Game Pass available. I don't have to drop another $70 for it.
You don't even have to. You don't have to be. I mean, the great thing is that if I spent like a few weeks just looking at Azure. Right. And the whole time I'm thinking, this is a game's Death Star. Like, it really is. Right. Like, with a turn of a key, you have resources available to you that people would have killed for like 10 years ago. Right. And it just means that you and your small gaming group, or your small development team, can do the work that maybe a group 5 times your size wasn't able to do 2 years ago, right?
Can I just interject a quick point to that, right? Like, literal, when we launched Asheron's Call, and I had my own data center next to my office, when we launched Asheron's Call at Microsoft, what we had to do is we were afraid of the land rush scenario. So I had a 5% increase in my server order, like ready to rack, just in case we had too many people, and we had to get those racks in, and Dell would let me return those at only a 10% kind of penalty fee, right? So we always would have this extra capacity ready. Now I just go into the Azure dashboard and turn the dial, right?
More warp speed.
Nice.
Yep.
It's crazy.
So let me ask. I'm gonna go around the room. What game are each of you excited about from Gamescom? Leon, why don't you start us off here?
For me, it was Age of Empires 4. Age of Empires was one of the first games I worked on when I joined Microsoft, and I helped with online matchmaking. I have friends that are working on that product, so there's a lot of personal history into that, and I played a whole lot of Age, so I'm really excited about that.
Nice. Shanae, what do you think?
Okay, I'm gonna pick a weird one because there's a lot of games that were announced. There are a lot of games that appeared at Gamescom, but I'm gonna pick one that was announced at Gamescom, I think, which was Cult of the Lamb.
Oh man, you took the one I wanted to look. I was going to mention that.
My twin sister would pick the same one that I wanted to pick.
Excuse me while I Google.
Listen, it looks like it's a 3/4 overview, like hack and slash, like action game sort of thing. It's got like community building and all kinds of stuff. You become like a lamb that's running a cult.
Yes, that's what it is. It's amazing.
You're defeating like other like false prophets. You're raising your flock of people with
followers.
Followers. You're also like it's also like got some Stardew Valley kind of mixed in there too. And then you're going out and you're fighting demons. And the art style looks amazing. I'm amused as heck. I love the theming for it. It's just comedy. So
it's Devolver Digital, right?
That. I'm gonna play that.
That one looked amazing. I just have to say, like, that was what I was like. No one's gonna mention Cult of the Lamb. Of course, my sister mentions Cult of the Lamb.
Of course, I mentioned that one.
I'm 30 seconds into that. I'm 30 seconds into that trailer, and I'm feeling it already.
Yes, it's so adorable. Okay,
join the cult, Travis.
I will mention my second choice, which was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge.
That was my second choice too.
Which I was never actually a TMNT fan. We grew up. We were not allowed to watch the show or anything like that. But like, I'm a sucker for sprite graphics and stuff like that. Like I love it. And April's gonna be a playable character in there too. I'm like, okay, I might just get into TMNT. So.
Classic beam up,
Yep. Okay, Chuck, what do you got?
TMT was my second choice.
Oh man!
But my first choice is Saints Row Reboot. I love the Saint Rose games. I love it's more of a parody on GTA than any other game, and they nail their mechanics. Their mechanics are always good. The game's always bonkers. So I'm really excited about the reboot. The trailer even had me. I was like, oh, is this going to be multiplayer? From the jump out the gate. I can't wait to play this game. This game's going to be amazing.
It looks great. Travis, what you got?
First of all, I've never been a Saints Row fan. I kept like going, are you serious? Are you serious? The whole time I would watch.
No, they're not serious. That's the beauty of the game. It's campy, over the top fun.
Yeah. Ain't nobody got time for that. I'm gonna go with Midnight Suns, Marvel, and I'll tell you why. Like the reason is because whenever you have a superhero game of any kind, it seems to be based around this game mechanic that works for one of those superheroes, but not all of them, right? And right. It always pays the price. Shanae knows what I'm talking about. So, anyways, with that, so with that in mind, right? So instead, you give the Marvel license to XCOM developers, and you say, do the damn thing. And let me tell you something. My body is so ready for that.
Mm-hmm. You know, one thing I have to say about that team, and I am an old school XCOM, like yes, Michael knows, like that's how hardcore I am about XCOM. And when they redid that reboot, it was so brilliant in that they captured what was important about the property and left out what was not. And I love those series of games. So they have absolutely earned my trust to see what they would do with Marvel. Because you're right, like a lot of these games, like Injustice, like I'll pick on Injustice, right? Everybody's Superman. Like they even made it a gameplay element. Like I just took this pill that makes me as strong as Superman. So that's why Catwoman can, deck Kal-El, right? That's typically how this works. But yeah, I want to see how they handle it, right? I want to see how Iron Man and Wolverine are working together, or Ghost Rider, right? Like, is Ghost Rider going to pull out the car? I hope so,
Yeah. What scared me about the game is Wait,
I just took this
what?
pill that makes every character in the game DC's worst character.
Sure.
Sorry.
What
So,
are you gonna say?
oh no, I was going to throw to Ryan and see what Ryan's answer was.
No, let me answer. The only thing that got me scared about the Marvel game
Mhm.
is that it's a Marvel game. No offense to the last Marvel game. That's the only thing I was like, it's a Marvel game.
The Marvel
Can I
game.
ask one question about the Marvel game? What was with the choice of the song? That was the thing that just threw me off. I'm like, okay,
Yeah, I don't know.
you guys are probably going to make an amazing game. Like, this is smart. This is interesting. I want to track this, but this cover of Enter Sandman ain't doing it for me.
Yeah. All right, Ryan, what do you got for us?
Man, you guys picked 3 of the games I was going to choose. Age of Empire, Marvel, Midnight, and
Cult of the
But
Lamb.
you want to play the Lamb game too?
yes.
That looks great.
But
Yes.
How am I the last person to know about this Lamb game?
I am a hardcore Call of Duty fan, so I'm going to go with Vanguard.
There you go.
That's for me.
Shocking.
There you
Shocking.
go.
Yes, poopy pants.
That's right, Poopy. That's me.
All right, awesome. If you folks have not had a chance to go look at some of the Gamescom coverage, please do yourself a favor and do a couple of Google searches. There's a ton of trailers and stuff that you should check out. There's a lot of great stuff that was talked about this week. Also, I don't know if it was announced or if they showed it at Gamescom, but that game like Journey to the West, like Black Wukong or something like that. Check that out because that looks amazing. Anywho, we're going to close up our show for this week. I want to give a shout out to Digital Click for all the creative they provide for each and every one of our shows. If you want to learn a little bit more about Technubians, make sure you hit up our website at technubians.com. That's techn00bians.com. Please follow us here on Twitch. And if you like our vibe, and we know you do, and you want to learn more about game development and everything geek, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, please follow us on all our socials. Search Geekish Network on all major platforms. Tonight on Geekish Network, we have Pod Squadron. We'll be talking everything about Star Wars. And tomorrow night, as always, is Nerdtastic. If you're ever wondering what else geek we're talking about, you can check out the schedule of our shows here on the TGN page on our Twitch page. And anyways, that's all for now. We will see you all next week. Thank you all for watching.
Peace.